Hi. All right, this is your optional lesson. You do not need to do this lesson if you do not want to, but there's an extra credit assignment or question on the test that's going to be about this kind of factoring. I think it's really interesting and it's really challenging, so let's get into it. So we're going to use a slightly different method for this kind of factoring because as you can see, this says 2x squared here. And usually when we're doing these kinds of factoring questions, it's only an x squared. And so what this means is that we need to think about it slightly differently. So I'm going to use the box method in reverse like we've looked at before when we're trying to explain how to factor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it up so that we have the 2x squared right here, and we have the positive 14 right here. Now what's different is that you don't just have x and x here, you need to have one of them be a 2x in order to get 2x squared in that corner box. So what does that mean for the rest of the numbers? Well, we still need two numbers that multiply to 14. We can do 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. And it does matter which one we put where. So let's take a look and try a random example. We are going to try 1 and 14. So I'm going to put positive 1 here and positive 14 here. 2 times 14 is 28, so that's 28x. 1 times x is 1x. And so if we were to add these diagonals together, we would see that it would be 29, which is not 11. So that did not work. However, when we are doing these, because we have the 2 in front of the x, it makes a difference whether we put the 14 on the top or on the side. So let's take a look. X times 14 is 14x. 2 times 1 is 2x. And if we added these two things together, we would get 16x. Well, that's not 11x. Well, that's all we got for 1 and 14. So 1 and 14 is not correct. And we need to try 2 and 7. So you can see how this is much more complicated than when you just have a plain old x, because we have to try a whole bunch of different more options. But the more and more you try, the more you'll start to see how there's a pattern, and you can kind of think through it a little bit and not just have to try every single one. However, that's the way it's going to be probably until you get the hang of it. So 2x times 2 is positive 4x. X times 7 is 7x. Oh my goodness. 7 and 4, those two numbers add together to make 11x. So we have solved our problem. I didn't set myself up for success on this one because we have to write 2x plus 7 and then x plus 2. When we use that strategy of setting ourselves up for success, where we just have x blank, that only works if we only have an x squared here. But since we have 2x squared, we have to write 2 in front of one of the x's. All right, let's do another example. See, it's fun. It's like a puzzle. All right. We are going to set it up. We have our 5x squared here and then negative 15 here. Now, because we have negatives that we're dealing with this time, again, things are a little bit more complicated because whenever you have a negative, it means that there's more options. So we have 15. We know that 15 is 1 and 15 or 3 and 5. All right, and in the middle, you see we have a negative 22x. And even though it is negative, we can't use that rule that like if the bigger number is negative necessarily, because we have a 5 in front of our x. So that changes things. Let's randomly choose one to try. I'm going to try doing a negative in front of the 5. And I'll put the 3 here, and I'll put the negative 5 here, and let's see what happens. So 5x times 3, that's going to give us 15x. X times negative 5 is negative 5x. When I add negative 5 and 15 together, I get positive 10. We're looking for negative 22. So that did not work. So let's try again, right? Cross that out. Let's try the same thing, but we have to try it in the other order. So we have to put the negative 5 here and the positive 3 here now. Ooh, it's a lot, right? There's a lot of different things that could happen. So negative 5 times 5, that's negative 25x. 5, x times 3 is positive 3x. All right, since I switched the order of which one was on top or the side, I got negative 25 plus 3, that's negative 22, so I found it. However, if I hadn't found it that quick, I would have had to try negative with the 3 and positive 5 and done that twice because it matters where you put each one. And if that didn't work, then I'd have to try all 4 options for 1 and 15, switching the negative and switching which spot they're in too. So, like I said, these are kind of like puzzles. They definitely work your brain a little bit harder. So that's why this is optional. This is an extra credit, but I think it's fun. It's kind of like a Sudoku or some other kind of puzzle that you're trying to solve with numbers. All right, I'm going to pause here. Go ahead and try the first 2 examples on your own. Hi. Okay, I hope you're feeling successful on those last 2 examples. So I am going to set up this next one. So this next example actually gets even more complicated than what we saw in the last 2. All right, sorry about the glitch there for a second. Okay, so what makes this even more complicated is this 12x squared right here. The 12x squared really complicates things because there are a few different ways to multiply to 12, right? We can do 1 and 12, or 2 and 6, or 3 and 4. And so which one is going to work, we don't know. So it's just adding more and more and more options to how we could multiply. And then at the same time, we have to take a look at the 20, the negative 22. So just lots of things going on, and this one's definitely like a puzzle where we have to keep guessing and checking and guessing and checking and guessing and checking until we find the answer that works. So let's just do 1 or 2 guess and checks until we get to the final answer. So I usually like to start with these numbers here and with these numbers here. The last one's on the list. And that just comes from practice. But when we have this middle number kind of small, then usually it's the smaller pairs of numbers, but not all the time. All right, so we need to use 3x and 4x here. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to use 4 and 5. I'm going to make the 5 negative. So I'm going to say, okay, I'll put the negative 5 here and then the positive 4 here. And let's see if it works. So 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 5 is 20, negative 20. And if we checked this, we'd get negative 20 and 12 add up to positive 8, but we want negative 1. So that did not work. Let's try switching the 2 numbers so that we have the negative 5 here and the positive 4 here. So 4 times 4, that is positive 16. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. All right. This is actually a really, really, really good example to see. So negative 15 and 16 add up to positive 1, but we want negative 1. So if we could somehow make that 16 negative and the 15 positive, that would give us a negative 1. So all we have to do is just switch the negative to be on the 4 and the positive to be on the 5, that will make this a positive 15, and it'll change this to a negative 16. And now when I add the diagonals together, we get a negative 1. So we found our answer, which is nice. We didn't have to do too many guess and checks. However, we might have had to go through and try, each one of these, each pair here is a trial of 4 different options, right? One could be negative, the other one could be negative. Then you also have to try switching which one is on which side of the box to see if it works. So it can get really time consuming, and it's a really great practice to stay organized by listing everything that you've tried, right? If I had tried this, I would have done that and then cross it off. And then if I had to start in on the 2's, right, it would be 2 and negative 10. Try that. Okay, if that didn't work, I would cross it off. Negative 2 and positive 10. Have to try those 2. Okay, so it's a really good idea to stay organized. If I'd gotten through all my options here and I couldn't find one that worked, that means that it's not a 3 and a 4 that we started with, and you have to start the whole process over trying the next option. So, like I said, these are complicated puzzles. They can take a long time, but it's good for your brain. And the more you practice and the more you try, you start to see patterns and get to take little shortcuts, and you get kind of a gut feeling of what is going to work and what is not going to work. So yeah, if you want to look up more videos on how to do this, there are so many different strategies that there's actually some really fun ones out there where they show you a formula to how to do it. So anytime with this class, feel free to YouTube or Google and look up factoring when there is a number in front of x squared. Sometimes the video is called when A, right? The letter A is not 1. So if you wanted to look up more strategies on how to do this, you would say factoring when A is not 1 is one thing that it's called that might be helpful. All right. Good luck on this. Good luck on your test. Remember, we have our study session on Friday at noon in FJ Office 10. We will go over these examples and we will go over the practice test and make sure you're all ready to get that summative exam in by Friday, April 2nd at midnight, the very latest.